Morning everybody, welcome back to the Work Turbo official YouTube channel. Today we're going to go over how to identify if your Garrett large frame turbocharger is a ball bearing or a journal bearing. Had a couple of guys ask me in my video about the small frame turbos identifying ball bearing and journal bearing, so hey, here you go. Here's your chance to pick up a little bit on the mid to large frame units. So this covers all your GT47 all the way up to your GT55 family of turbos. On the left here we have a journal bearing GT55, journal bearing GT55. This one is an aftermarket upgrade, so it's had some parts put on the front half of it, but it's a genuine Garrett bearing housing, turbine wheel, etc. So as you can see, the center section is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple looking. Your oil feed on top, oil return on the bottom. But the bearing housing itself doesn't have any of these. This is your GT55 R series ball bearing turbo. So the bearing housing has cooling fins cast into it. It also has a much smaller oil feed hole compared to the journal bearing one. The big kicker in identifying these are going to be the cooling fins. It's far as I'm aware of, the only model that uses the cooling fin will be the R series or the ball bearing unit. It may have a cast iron back plate, or it could have an aluminum back plate depending on if it's a Gen 1 or Gen 2 cast wheel, billet wheel model, but all of them use the same center section. GT47, GT50, GT55. If you look up in the oil drain hole, probably will not get my camera to fixate on it, focus on it. There is a retaining pin. It is a 13mm bolt. As another easy identifier of the ball bearing. That's the anti-rotation pin for the bearing cartridge. Sorry, these two specimens are dirty. Didn't have any new parts laying around to show you, but the journal bearing unit just has this opening. You can actually, if you look close enough, you can see the shaft down there. But as far as I have seen in my career, every ball bearing unit that is a factory Garrett one will have the cooling fins. Now, some early precision units, they do use a Garrett bearing housing, but they've been modified for a ball bearing in the front. They still have a journal bearing in the rear. They just use the ball bearing for thrust loading, so it is kind of hard to identify those. I'll see if I have a bearing housing from one of the precision units laying around at some point to do a video on it, as well as a few other aftermarket ball bearing conversions. But if you're talking strictly Garrett, that is your easy identifier. Cooling fins, no cooling fins on the journal bearing. Your oil feed hole will have a little small opening for the ball bearing. And last but not least, your anti-rotation pin is a 13mm bolt in the bottom of the oil drain cavity. Super simple. Guys, I appreciate you watching this video and I hope you learned something from it. Just like everybody on YouTube says, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if you want to keep these videos coming. Hope y'all guys have a great day. We will talk to you soon.